In the dim glow of a rainy Tuesday evening in downtown Seattle, where the relentless drizzle painted the city streets in shades of gray, Elena Vargas stood frozen before the floor-to-ceiling mirror of the upscale boutique. Her reflection stared back like an unwelcome stranger. Curves she once embraced now felt like chains, heavy and unforgiving. At 32, Elena had built a life of quiet resilience, a graphic designer by day, a volunteer at the local food bank by night, pouring her heart into sketches that captured the unfiltered beauty of everyday people. But tonight, as she smoothed the emerald green dress over her hips, the fabric whispering accusations, doubt crashed over her like the Pacific waves she'd grown up watching from her family's modest home in Tacoma. "I can't," she whispered to her reflection, her voice cracking like thunder in the empty fitting room. The dress, a bold choice for her best friend's wedding the next day, clung in all the wrong places, or so it seemed. Tears welled up, blurring the edges of her world. Elena had always been the strong one, the sister who held the family together after their father's passing, the friend who listened without judgment. Yet here, in this sanctuary of silk and sequins, she felt exposed, unworthy. She tugged at the hem, willing it to forgive her body's softness, the extra weight from late-night stress eating after endless deadlines. "I'm too fat for this," she murmured, the words slipping out like a confession she hadn't meant to voice aloud. Unbeknownst to her, on the other side of the velvet curtain, Alex Harper lingered in the aisle of tailored suits. A 35-year-old architect with calloused hands from sketching blueprints under fluorescent lights, Alex had wandered into the boutique on a whim, fleeing the monotony of another solo dinner at his high-rise apartment overlooking Puget Sound. Divorced 2 years prior, his life had become a series of measured lines and right angles, precise, but devoid of warmth. He wasn't shopping for himself, a forgotten gift card from a client had drawn him in, but now, overhearing the soft sob from the fitting room, he paused. The sales associate, a wiry young man named Theo, shot him a sympathetic glance but said nothing, busying himself with a rack of scarves. Alex's heart, usually guarded like a fortified blueprint, stirred. He thought of his own scars, not visible ones, but the invisible kind, the way his ex-wife's words had carved into him, calling him too ordinary for her glittering social circle. He'd learned to build walls, but tonight, the rain outside mirrored the storm within Elena's voice. Against his better judgment, he cleared his throat gently. "Excuse me, miss. I couldn't help but overhear. If it's not too forward, that dress sounds like it's fighting a losing battle against someone extraordinary." Elena's breath hitched. Mortification flooded her cheeks as she yanked the curtain aside just enough to peer out. There he stood, tall, with tousled dark hair damp from the rain, wearing a simple wool coat that smelled faintly of cedar and coffee. His eyes, a warm hazel, held no pity, only a quiet curiosity that made her stomach twist. "What?" she managed, her voice a fragile thread. He smiled, not the polished grin of a salesman, but something real, crinkled at the corners. "I'm Alex. And I don't mean to intrude, but I've seen enough blueprints in my life to know when something's a masterpiece in disguise. That dress. It's not the problem. It's just, jealous of you." She blinked, the words landing like sunlight piercing storm clouds. No one had ever said anything like that to her, not her ex-boyfriend, who'd ghosted her after one too many joking comments about her portions, nor the well-meaning aunties at family gatherings who pushed salads her way with sighs. Elena's laugh bubbled up unexpectedly, a mix of disbelief and relief. "Jealous? Of me? Sir, you must need glasses. I'm too fat for this thing. Look at me." Alex stepped closer, his presence steady like the ancient oaks in Discovery Park he jogged past each morning. He glanced at the mirror's reflection, then back at her, his gaze unwavering. "Fat? Elena, wait, is that your name? I overheard Theo mentioning it earlier. Elena, beauty isn't measured in sizes. It's in the way you light up a room without trying. I've spent years designing buildings that stand tall against earthquakes, but people are the real wonders. And you're carrying a world of stories in those eyes. Don't let a scrap of fabric tell you otherwise. The boutique seemed to fade away, the hum of the espresso machine in the corner cafe, the patter of rain on the awning outside, all of it hushed. Elena's chest tightened, not from shame, but from the raw kindness in his tone. Who was this stranger, offering her grace she hadn't earned? She wiped at her eyes, the dress suddenly feeling less like a cage and more like a possibility. You don't know me, she said softly, stepping fully into the light. The emerald fabric caught the overhead lamps, casting flecks of green across her skin like forest leaves in summer. I know enough, Alex replied, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Enough to say that if that dress doesn't see your worth, it's not worth wearing. But you? You're worth every compliment in the world. In that moment, as Theo pretended to rearrange ties in the distance, Elena felt a shift, a crack in the armor she'd worn for years. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was something profound, the realization that humanity's quiet heroes often arrived unannounced, armed not with grand gestures, but with words that rebuilt what doubt had torn down. She smoothed the dress once more, this time with tentative pride. Thank you, Alex. Really. I needed that. He nodded, shoving his hands into his pockets to hide their slight tremble. Weddings are for new beginnings, right? Go knock 'em dead tomorrow. And if you ever need a +1 for blueprints or bad coffee, you know where to find me. With a wink, he turned toward the door, leaving his card on the counter, a simple white rectangle etched with Harper Designs, and a phone number scrawled in pen. As the bell tinkled behind him, Elena watched his silhouette dissolve into the rain-slicked street. Her heart raced, not from fear, but from possibility. For the first time in months, she saw herself not as broken, but as blooming. Little did she know, this chance encounter was merely the prelude to a symphony of self-discovery, where kindness would unravel threads of insecurity she'd long believed unbreakable. The wedding dawned crisp and golden, the kind of Pacific Northwest morning that made you believe in miracles. Elena arrived at the waterfront venue in Gig Harbor, the ferry ride across the sound a meditative blur of whitecaps and gulls. Her best friend, Mia, radiant in ivory lace, pulled her into a fierce hug. You look incredible. That dress was made for you. Elena blushed, Alex's words echoing like a mantra. During the ceremony, as vows floated on the salty breeze, she stole glances at her phone, his card's number burning a hole in her pocket. Should she text? Was it too soon? The what-ifs swirled, but beneath them lay a newfound courage. That evening, as laughter filled the reception hall overlooking the marina, Elena slipped outside for air. The sun dipped low, painting the water in hues of rose and amber. Her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number, hope the dress didn't revolt. If you're still in one piece, coffee tomorrow? No pressure. Her fingers flew across the screen before doubt could intervene, it surrendered. Coffee sounds perfect. 10 a.m., Elliott Bay Book Company. What began as coffee stretched into hours of shared stories. Alex spoke of his childhood in a sleepy Oregon town, building forts from driftwood with his brothers, dreaming of structures that could withstand anything. Elena opened up about her immigrant parents' journey from Mexico, the tamales that filled their tiny kitchen with love, and the sketches she hid in drawers, portraits of strangers she'd imagined whole lives for. Laughter came easily, bridging the gaps between their worlds. He admitted his divorce had left him questioning his own worth. She confessed the mirror's lies had nearly silenced her creativity. Weeks blurred into a rhythm of stolen moments, hikes through Olympic National Park, where ferns whispered secrets and ancient cedars stood sentinel, late-night calls tracing constellations from their respective balconies, a rainy afternoon in his studio, where she sketched while he drafted, their silences comfortable as old friends. Yet, beneath the budding romance, Elena's shadows lingered. A cruel comment from a client, tone it down on the curves in that ad, honey, sent her spiraling, skipping meals and avoiding mirrors. One night, curled on her couch with a half-eaten pint of ice cream, she texted Alex, remember what you said that day? I think the dress won after all. I'm too much. too fat, too everything. Alex arrived not with flowers or platitudes, but with a canvas tote bulging with takeout from her favorite taqueria, carnitas tacos steaming in foil, fresh guacamole that smelled of lime and home. He didn't knock, he let himself in with the spare key she'd given him weeks ago, a gesture of trust that still made her heart flutter. Finding her on the floor amid crumpled tissues, he set the bag down and sank beside her, his knee brushing hers in silent solidarity. "Elena," he said, his voice a gentle anchor, "look at me." She did, reluctantly, her eyes red-rimmed and guarded. The apartment, a cozy nook in Capitol Hill filled with vibrant murals she'd painted herself, felt smaller in her vulnerability, like the walls were closing in on her flaws. "Why are you here, Alex? You deserve someone who has it together, not this mess." He shook his head, unfolding a taco with deliberate care and pressing it into her hand. "Because, together, is a myth. We're all messes, beautifully so. Remember that first day? You thought a dress defined you. But I saw you, the woman who volunteers rain or shine, who draws souls onto paper, who makes my blueprints feel alive with color. You're not too much. You're exactly enough. And that client? They're blind. But me? I'm seeing you clearer every day." Tears traced fresh paths down her cheeks, but this time, they tasted of release. As they ate cross-legged on the rug, sauce staining their fingers, Alex shared a story he'd never told, his battle with anxiety after the divorce, the nights he'd paced his apartment, convinced he was unlovable, a failure at love, at life. "I hid it," he admitted, vulnerability etching lines on his face. "But you've taught me it's okay to let the cracks show." They let the light in. In that raw exchange, an unexpected turn unfolded, not in grand drama, but in quiet profundity. Elena pulled out her sketchbook, the one she'd clutched like a shield, and flipped to a page she'd hidden, a portrait of Alex, not as the architect in his pressed shirts, but as the boy by the driftwood forts, eyes wide with wonder, hands outstretched to the sea. "I drew this last week," she whispered. "Because you make me believe in building again. Not just walls, but bridges." Alex's breath caught, his fingers tracing the lines she'd etched with such tenderness. "Elena, this is me. The real me." He leaned in, their foreheads touching, the world narrowing to the space between heartbeats. No words were needed, the realization bloomed unspoken, that love wasn't about perfection, but about choosing each other's light amid the shadows. From there, their story wove deeper threads. Elena channeled her pain into a passion project, a series of illustrations for a body-positive campaign, partnering with local artists to celebrate diverse forms in bold, unapologetic strokes. Alex designed pop-up galleries in underserved neighborhoods, turning blank walls into canvases of hope. Together, they volunteered at body image workshops, sharing snippets of their journey, not as experts, but as survivors of self-doubt. One evening, at a community center in the Central District, Elena stood before a circle of women, her voice steady. "I once looked in the mirror and saw only flaws. But a stranger, a friend, now a love, reminded me that our bodies are vessels for stories worth telling. Yours are too." The room erupted in applause, but it was a young girl's tentative hug that undid her, a mirror of her younger self, whispering thanks through tears. Alex watched from the back, pride swelling in his chest like the tide. Later, under a canopy of stars at Gas Works Park, he pulled her close. "You melted me that day in the boutique," he confessed. "Not just millions, me." Their emotional climax crested not in isolation, but in shared transformation. Months later, on a whim, Elena submitted her illustrations to a national contest. The winning entry? Her portrait of Alex, titled, "Blueprints of the Heart." It went viral, not for its artistry alone, but for the story behind it, the boutique encounter, shared on social media with Alex's blessing. Comments flooded in, "This healed something in me. Kindness is the real curve we need." Millions viewed, shared, wept over, a ripple of compassion from one man's words. Yet the true climax unfolded privately, on a crisp autumn eve back in Seattle. Alex knelt by the same waterfront where Mia's wedding had sparked their beginning, a simple ring glinting in his palm, emerald to match the dress that started it all. Elena Vargas, you're my masterpiece. Will you build a life with me? Curves, sketches, tacos, and all. Yes, she breathed, pulling him up into an embrace that tasted of forever. As fireworks from a distant ferry lit the sky, Elena realized the profound turn. Her too fat had become just right, not for the world, but for the love that saw her wholly. In the end, their story whispered a universal truth, that in a world quick to judge, one act of selfless kindness can shatter insecurities, forging paths to love and self-acceptance. Elena and Alex's journey reminded us all, from the bustling streets of New York to the quiet corners of small-town America, that humanity's power lies in lifting each other, one heartfelt word at a time. And in that lifting, we find not just hope, but home. So go forth, dear reader, look deeper, speak kinder, love bolder. Your next words might just melt a heart, or a million.